When you receive your retrofit, your XY retrofit, there is a square washer that is taped to the inside of your motor mount right here. Take the tape off of it, take the washer off and set it aside. This washer is to go on the 1032 screw. You also have your oiler, which is going to go on the saddle when we're all done here. And we have our Y-axis accordion cover. You'll notice that one side of the Y-axis has these slots in it of the cover, and the other side has two holes. The slotted side is going to go towards your saddle. The two holes are what's going to be mounted on to the end of your motor mount. So the first thing we have to do is loosen all the screws so we can get this stuff in here. So we're going to loosen the 1032s on this one, and we'll back it out about 4 turns. Then we're going to loosen the 1032 and the two 832s from this end. These screws are going to have to come all the way out. Just turn them out until they're not threaded into the base anymore, and leave them in the holes. Once you have all the screws disconnected from the base, you just pull the saddle forward a little bit, and you've got all your screws sticking out of your adapter like so. The easiest way to get this guy on here is to put it on the screw to begin with. This square spacer is the exact same thickness as your Y-axis mount cover. And the reason we add this spacer to it is if you tighten down with the two 832 screws on your Y-axis cover and you don't put the spacer in there, when you tighten down the 1032 screw, is going to cause this whole assembly to cock like this. So that spacer is there. It's critical that it's there. That's to keep this nice and square, or nice and perpendicular square to the end of your mill base, so your screw is nice and parallel with your dovetails. All right, so your washer's on. The next thing we want to do is put this cover over, and you can line up your 832 screws with the two holes in the cover. Just hold the 832 in place, get one started, then get the other started, and they're all the way through. You pull your cover back like this so you can actually see all of your screws coming through. And if we turn it a little bit to the side, you can see all 3 screws coming through right now. What you want to do now is move your saddle forward until it starts to touch the screws. Go a little bit further than that, and then get one of your 832 screws started in the hole. You're probably going to have to lift up your assembly to get it to align with the hole. Once you get the one 832 started, and you want to come over here and get the other 832 started. Once that's started, we'll get the 1032 started so we don't lose that washer. Once they're all started, you can just push your saddle assembly back, and that'll pull the stepper motor mount up against the end of the base. And then we can tighten these down the rest of the way. So we'll do the 832s first. And once they're snug, we're going to tighten these guys down all the way. Good and tight on that one. Good and tight on that one. And then the 1032. So those guys are all secured, nice and tight. If we flip this guy over, you can now see that we have the space. So this is set up the same way as it was the last time, when we just align your ball nut with your stepper motor mount. What we're going to do is, you want to have a nice space like that, because these slots right here are going to go down over the screws, and it's just going to fall into place like so. Now, if you push this down hard, you are most likely going to have a section of this weight cover mount plate rubbing on your base. So you don't want to push it down hard. Just for right now, just let it hang, but we'll pull it up a little bit before we tighten the screws. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to pull the saddle all the way up to the end of travel. We'll realign our ball nut, and then we'll keep force on it. We'll move it out and we'll tighten up those screws. So right now, that all feels good right there. It's nice and free. We'll keep pressure on the back side of your base and we'll start moving it away. So right now you pushed your ball nut mount against the saddle with it aligned to your stepper motor. And now you have to get enough room in here to actually get your Allen wrench in there to tighten those guys down. I'm going to tighten down one screw on this side first, and all you have to do is get one of them snug. Use your ball nut, your ball end Allen wrench. So that guy's snug right there, so he's not going to move. And I'm going to come in and snug up the other one. That guy's snug. Right now I've got clearance in my cover. It's not binding anywhere. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to tighten them down the rest of the way. And actually this is easier done using your wrench. The Allen wrench is there. I'm going to use my wrench as a cheater bar. And I'm just going to tighten that up. That one's tight. I put my Allen wrench back in on this side. Use my wrench again and cinch this one down. Now I'm going to bring it all the way back again and make sure it feels the same way as it did when I just brought it back the last time. And there should be no binding. It should feel nice and free. If you do feel some binding, these screws are much easier to get to than the screws under there. Then what I would do is bring it back here as close as you can. And then I would break these guys loose right here and just give it a little wiggle to align this guy with that. So that one's loose. Loosen them up about a turn. And you can see you have some play in there. And I would basically just bring it in. That's feeling a little looser than it just was with the first alignment. Bring them into each other and then snug it down again. Just go snug. See how it feels. That's feeling pretty good. Cinch them down. All right, then test it out one more time. That feels beautiful right there. No binding whatsoever. Very nice and smooth. The last thing we're going to do is put our oiler on. And that just threads in by hand. And you're good to go. And we just pop the cap off. Fill it up. Put the cap back on. Let it soak in a little bit, let it get through all the galleys, and then move it back and forth, and both of your dovetail surfaces should be lubed up. And if you do that once a day, your machine will be perfectly lubricated for use. So we're using 3-in-1 oil on the dovetail oiler. I'm going to flip this upside down for a minute to show you the mill saddle. mill table rather. Oil for the mill table. What I would do is put a couple drops on both dovetails on both sides, and then put some on your finger and bring it up underneath the dovetail. You can spread this around, but you actually get it inside on the dovetail. Once both sides are done, then you're going to work this guy back and forth so it gets the entire length of the dovetail covered and up inside the saddle. Spread this guy out. There we go. And bring it all the way back. All right, the next one is going to be the ball screw. The ball screws have oil on them when you get them, so they don't need to be lubricated right away. However, when you do lubricate them, we have the NSK AS2 grease. This is enough grease to last you several lifetimes. If you put a whole bunch of this grease onto your lead screw, you're just going to clog up the ball nut and the balls, and your machine's not going to work properly. So you just want to put a little bit on your finger. That's plenty. Put this all the way down to the end of travel. And then I would just wipe it down the length of the screw. Make sure you're adding it to the ball screw between the stepper motor mount and the ball nut. If you put it on this end, it's never going to be a factor. Once the grease is on, then you just spin it through. When you have this on your machine, you just hook it up to your drive and just jog your table back and forth and in and out. Same goes for this screw, your Y-axis screw. You want to move this as far as you can to the end of travel in your Y, and then again put the grease on your finger, get it in here, and just wipe it on just one section, and then jog your axis back and forth, and that takes care of the lubrication of your ball screw. 3-in-1 oiler for the dovetails, 3-in-1 oil by hand for your dovetail and your mill table, and NSK grease for your ball screws. There we go. Next, we're going to show you how to put the column and the brass cover screw onto your Y-axis. This is a clearance on your ball screw, and if you put it into your saddle, you might have to move the ball screw slightly to get it in your saddle. This should be just a snug fit. So for right now, in order to do this correctly, okay, we're going to put the column base on first. Put your 2/4 20 screws through the base. Okay, first, make sure there's absolutely no chips, dings, or anything on either one of these mating surfaces. This is what guarantees that your column is square and perpendicular. All you're going to do is put it in a couple threads on your first 1/4 20 screw, and a couple threads on your second 1/4 20 screw, just to get them started. Once you get them started, then we'll cinch them down all the way. They're in snug. I'm going to cinch them down good and tight. All right. And when you put your Y-axis cover, your brass tube, you want to have the column base on so you can use the hole through the column base to guide your brass tube. Put it through. You can use silicone. This is Goop, it's E6000. And all you want to do, it's a snug fit into the saddle. So most of the time, this fit right here will be enough to keep it in place when your axis is moving back and forth and it won't go anywhere. To make sure that it doesn't come out, you put silicone or Goop onto it, and you just want to put a little bit on here. Put it around like that. Take your finger and spread it out so it's nice and thin on that area. Don't get it up towards the front. Do it back here about a ½ inch or more back. That way there's no way it's going to get onto the ball screw at all. And then you just guide it in. If you feel resistance, which you might, get a piece of wood and push the piece of wood, or tap the piece of wood with a hammer and just push it in. It only has to go in 3/4 of an inch to be in place and staying there. Now it's pretty much, it's guaranteed that moving back and forth, that this is not going to come out of there now. Okay, we're going to put the Y-axis cover on the back side now. You've got your column mounted. If your column still has the bed and everything else on it, just take the 4 screws out, put everything off to the side. You're going to have to true in your head after you get this assembled anyhow. So anyhow, this is the easiest way to get it all put together. First we have 2 1032 screws, and on each screw we have 2 washers. The one washer goes on the back side of the mounting plate, and the other one goes on the front side. The one on the back side is to give us space so our the rivet heads don't scratch the back of your mill table. So if you just get these guys started and put them in probably about halfway, so you don't have to do so much Allen wrench work, and keep them spaced like that so we can slide the mounting plate in easily. All right, we've got those spaced. First we put the back side on, and you've got your spring. You can set this guy up like that. Just put the spring over the top and down, and you're good right here. And then we take the front side and we just put the cutouts over the screws. And then we move your table back so we have access to the 1032 socketed cap screws. All right, and then we just get our Allen wrench inside and screw these down. What you're going to want to do is hold it down while you're tightening the screw. And when it's snug, what you want to do is just break it loose a little bit and just pull the plate up slightly. And that guarantees that this plate won't rub on your dovetail surface anywhere. So that one's snug. I'm just going to turn it around and tighten up the other one. Once you have them snug, move it back and forth and make sure you don't hear or feel any rubbing. There's nothing rubbing there, so we're good. And now we'll tighten them down all the way. I use a ball Allen wrench. get the ball into the screw. And then use a wrench as a cheater bar on the small end of the Allen. All right, and then we just sock it down. That one's good and tight. And we do the same thing on the other side. All right, that one's tight. Okay. All right. When you have your tooling plate on top of this, it's going to hold most of this down anyhow, about 3 inches. The other one is once you've made your Z-axis move back and forth a few times, go full distance back and forth and hold these down, it'll start to make them so they bend more like this and less bubbling up like that. So there you have it. One more is if you notice that this is starting to ride up all the time, all you have to do is put your spring underneath the guy right here, your brass tube, and that'll generally help it out. You might have to put a little bit of tape there as a holder. But anyhow, that's your front and back covers, and we're good to go.